Okay, we're going to do a quick mic check here just to see how the mic's doing before we get going on the streaming thing. All right, it's 2 o'clock, but we'll give it a few more minutes just to make sure everybody can log in, and then I'll get started on some introductions and whatnot. I don't think this MacBook is, I don't know if you guys can hear it through the microphone, but this poor MacBook is struggling with the streaming stuff all running. Okay. Let me get my notes ready, and we'll kick it off here. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Goins, for those of you who don't recognize my voice and my presentation style. And this is just a brief online training for gravity forms, just an introduction to using gravity forms, some things to think about as you're using it. And then we can kind of take a few questions as we go throughout the afternoon. I assume we won't take up the full 2 hours that I had scheduled, but I just wanted to make sure I had enough time for this, just in case we did have a lot of questions and a lot of back and forth conversation, which I do encourage. We did the events calendar on Tuesday, and that went okay. The stream quality was a little rough, and so I tried to change a few things up for today. So hopefully the visual will be a lot better this time around. It was a little rough on the sort of the blurriness of the screen. So to get started, we're going to talk about Gravity Forms today, which is our plugin that we use for building out web-based forms. So if you're looking at our site, when you do the request a new site, for example, this is what a gravity form can build out, and we'll kind of go through some of the different steps and things to think about as we are building this out. Remember, we made a change recently to the way that we are activating plugins. We no longer have many of these plugins turned on by default, so you must request to have these forms turned on. You do that by going to Help and the Customer Support form, and in here there is a plugin activation request selection, and then down below that you have the various values that you might want to test out. I didn't create any steps to walk through this one. Maybe I'll have to come back to this later on with a little bit more training. But you can request gravity forms and then submit, and we will turn it on for your site. It's just, we don't like to add more things that might be called within your site, so we've decided to just turn it on as needed or as desired from that standpoint. Once it is activated for your site, similar to other plugins as well, remember that for a user to get access to the various plugins to view over here on the left side, you must have your user role as an administrator. So that's another question that we get pretty often, is the plugin will be activated but nobody will see it, or certain people won't see it on the left. That's because they need to be administrators to actually get access to the forms area over on the left. So creating forms. To create your forms and to access your forms, bring up my notes again, you would click on Forms over here on the left. And actually, really briefly, let's go ahead and look in the settings just to take a peek at some of the settings that exist in here. The various values here. This is the big one here. Make sure that you set your currency. I believe we do this by default, but just be aware of the fact that you might want to set that value there. And then I'm going to touch on CAPTCHA in a little bit here and just the significance of it from that standpoint. So back up to forms. This is your full list of forms here. You'll see the ones that are active will have the little slider on here to activate or deactivate. You can click that on and off if you so desire. To add a new form, you simply click on Add New at the top here. It will prompt you for a form title. I am going to just briefly bring this up. I'm going to run through some things, but this is a KB doc that I'm going to put into the knowledge base document that we have for gravity forms. But this is what I started to use way back in the day when I started to tinker around with learning how to use gravity forms. Gravity forms themselves have a knowledge base, and it goes through all of the various fields that you can use, as well as how to use them, what to use, etc. Some of them will work, some of them will not work, some of them we haven't tinkered around with much to see what they might do. We've had a couple of groups try to use the pricing fields on their forms, and it's been met with kind of somewhat success, but it hasn't done exactly what they have wanted it to do. So we've recommended that they remove those things, but it might be something to take a look at. So, and then I'll get into this post fields one as well. These two are the ones that you will use the most, which is the standard fields and the advanced fields, and we'll kind of get into creating those right now. So creating a new form, the form title, it's pretty straightforward. You want to give it a particular title. You can give the form a description. And I will click Create Form. Once you click Create Form, it will take you into the form that you are working on. You will have a number of steps to follow here, and this kind of walks you through what all of the things are that you need to do for this particular field, or for this particular form, I'm sorry. But we're going to kind of go through some of these at random, and I'll create a couple of forms to just show you how some of the various ways work and some of the other things that you can kind of think about with this. So, I want to know, are you interested in baseball? So I might want to add under advanced fields, I'm curious who you are, so I might put on the name. So I just click on that and then click on the particular button that you want to add, and it will add that field over here on the left. To see the settings of the field that you have selected, you can click on the little drop down arrow right here, and you can change that to full name. If we want to, I could add more or fewer of the fields I want, and then I can also make it, required if I wanted to. The appearance, I could put in placeholders if I wanted to. So, first and last if I wanted to do placeholders there. We'll talk about some of these others in a little bit here, and then some advanced values as well. You could put in some default values there. But that's how you add the name field. And then I might want your email. And again, I could change this up to say preferred email address, make it a required field. And then one last field to add is I'll just add a single line text. I just want a brief statement from you. So what you'll see is, let me check that in a second, Nick. What you'll see this is as untitled. So if I click on this drop down, I can give this label a value, and instead of untitled, I could say, tell me about, I guess I could say, tell me why you love baseball. And then I could put in a maximum characters if I wanted to, if I wanted it to be 255, etc. And I can make it required. I could make the field size small, medium, or large, so I could give them more room to type in there. And then advanced, you could put in some default values as well, and some conditional logic. We'll get onto that. So let me just pop up here and see if I can answer Nick's. So you want to know, can from first and last to given and family. So first and last. Yep. So that's how you do it, is you would edit these two values right here. The custom label areas is where you can change that for that. So once I've added those particular fields, again, we're making this one be a simple form. So I'm just going to click Update. It will tell me that it updated successfully, thankfully. And then if I wanted to preview it, I would just click Preview here. Now, preview is going to be a bit weird because, as you can see, it doesn't style it how it's going to look when it shows up on the page. You're just going to get a preview of what all the various fields look like. But here's what we're looking at for what it looks like right now. So looks good. It's a pretty simple form. It's going to do what I need it to do. So let's see. Let's go back down to here. Maybe I want to add a description. There we go. I will again continue to entertain myself. So as you can see here, as I added that in, it showed up right there. Oops, didn't mean to click there. It showed up underneath the input field right there. But maybe I don't want it to be underneath the input field. Maybe I want it to show up above the input field underneath the label itself. So what I can do is I can go over to Appearance and I could click on Description Placement and set it above the input. So, tell me why you love baseball, my little statement right here, and now it goes, oops, sorry. This is one of the problems with the streaming aspect of the MacBook I'm using, is it's a bit weird on the responsiveness. But there's the way that will look now. So again, if I can click Update and lay preview, now there's that right there. So again, pretty straightforward. The ability or the process of building a gravity form is not going to be too difficult. The biggest thing that I always recommend people to do whenever we sit in open labs, or when people email me to ask about gravity forms, is I usually recommend write it out. Kind of write out where you want things to be so that you can easily look over here on the left and kind of click on what you want things to appear on the form itself. I like to go in with a plan, so it might make it easier. Once you have these values over here, you can drag and drop them to move them into a different location. So maybe I want the text area to be the first thing, and then ask you for your personal information right in here, and then update. All right, so that's how I made the basic form. We'll tinker around a little bit more with this to add some more, I guess, advanced things to it. But let's take a look at some of the settings that you can set for this. So if I hover over Settings, I will click on Form Settings. And you'll see here is the title that I gave it. I can change that if I want. Form description, change that if I want. Now remember, I had to change those description placements because they default to below. I can go into here and just say, you know what, they all appear above, and that's really what I want it to be there. I can change what the form button is, what the submit button is. So instead of saying submit, I might want to say subscribe, or let's go, something of that nature. We'll talk about conditional logic in a little bit here because that gets into a little bit more stuff. There is also the ability to create a save and continue. So essentially what this does is it allows a person to click on save and continue later. And what it does is it will prompt them for an email to get a link to come back to this particular entry. So it will essentially save cookie this entry for them. And we do have a couple of groups that do use the save and continue later. I don't know what their feelings are on them or what the success is for using them. We have had a few people have used it, so just be aware of the fact that person has to remember to come back and finish filling out the form. A few restrictions in here. I tend to leave these be. I don't need to worry about it for entry limits. Obviously, we don't want to have to require users to be logged in because most of you want your forms to be visible to the public, so you don't want to have to require people to log in to actually fill out a form. You might have subscribers to your site for intranets or forced logins. That might be something to look at for that, but again, I tend to leave that alone. You can schedule a form if you so desire, so you can basically say I want this form to be active from one date through another date, and then this form is not yet available, please check back on March 1st. This form is no longer available, it was only active during the month of March, kind of thing there, if you want to do that. So I know we've chatted with a couple of groups in the past where they just wanted to make a form available for essentially like signups, student forms, scholarship forms, employment forms, things of that nature. We've had those types of interests before, so this is something that you could look at for that. We leave these alone because we're going to talk about CAPTCHA in a little bit here, and then Eloqua is down here. I don't know that we have Eloqua set up correctly for Gravity Forms just yet for our campus use. It might be something where if you're interested in using Eloqua, you might have to come in and chat with us and have, I know one of our developers has worked on it with a group here on campus, but I don't know how successful that's been. I know there's been a few issues that he's had to troubleshoot to get things to work. So might be just something where we'd have to sit and chat and find out what you're trying to do with that just to make sure. So once I've made any of the changes, I can click Update Form Settings. That will save these changes that I want. I don't want Save and Continue. So the next thing down over here in the settings area is the confirmations. So confirmations is essentially what do you want to happen once what do you want a person to see once they have clicked on the submit button or once they've actually submitted the form, successfully submitted the form. So the default confirmation is all that it does is it reloads the page that they were on, but it removes the form and shows this thing right here. So you can go in and just edit this particular text area to be more specific if you so desire, or add a little bit more information to it. There's also some options up here for page. You can send them to a particular page if you wanted to once they have completed the form. And then also redirect. You could set up a redirect once they have submitted the form. So once they submit, it automatically takes them someplace else. There's dangers with doing both page and redirect because really you'd have to really have some specific language happening wherever you redirect them to, either to a page or an external link, to let them know that they actually did successfully submit the form. So I would caution these, not to say not to use them, but text is the one where you can really specifically say, thank you for submitting your form. We will get in touch with you within X amount of business days. For more information, please view here, etc. Kind of things. And again, I'll come back around to this because I'll talk about a few of the things that I have set up for other groups in the past. But so confirmations, if you wanted to, you could add multiple confirmations. So I could click Add New. I could give it a different confirmation name. So I could say, you know, oh, baseball is here, and I could have that go to a redirect and have it go to the MLB website. You can also put some conditional logic in there if you wanted to. And again, I'll come back around to this in a second once I start to advance my form a little bit more. But I'll save that confirmation just to have it there so when I come back. So again, confirmations, important because it basically is what happens when you let them know, or how do you let them know that they have successfully completed the form and submitted it. So lastly over here, you have notifications. So notifications is what do you want to happen, what do you want to have happen with this form once they have submitted it? Now, the default thing to have happen really is it sends to someone's email address. So when you go to notifications, you'll see that there is an admin notification in there by default. I'll click on that one just to edit it. So you'll see there are some things that are already applied in there, particularly the send to email, the from email, and then the subject of the particular email there. So first things first, the send to email. It defaults to a field that's called admin email. Admin email is something that is generated when your site was created within WiscWeb or within whatever other service that you have built your site in. And technically, you know, I'm talking to you all from the WiscWeb service standpoint. Obviously, Gravity Forms can be used by anybody if you purchase the key. But it defaults to a particular value. A lot of times, person who requested site that we set up as the email or as the admin isn't really the person who should be receiving form submissions. So you want to make sure that you do attend to this. So, you know, I might say, send it to my email. The from name field, this one's kind of interesting because what you could do is you could have it be a more personalized email to you, where you could click on the little drop down here and merge some fields from the actual form that they are submitting. So I might want their first name and then their last name. Notice I had to put that little space in there just to make it work, right? But you know, I can pull that in from the form that is getting submitted. Next is the from email. So this is the big one for the WiscWeb service specifically, and then other entities within our hosting environment. So you know, we host with WiscWeb, we host with Do It Web Hosting, and we host with CALS, and we host with the School of Education. All of these are cloud-based hosting services. Because we exist in Amazon Web Services for our hosting platform, this function has to have a very specific email address put in there so that it can send through our servers to then be received by whatever email address you put into here. So in the from email field, you need to make sure that you have no reply at email.wiscweb.wisc.edu. Yes, we have set it up that this happens by default regardless of what you put into here, but we have done that via some coding in the background and some, I don't know if it's a plugin that we use within our internal functions to do this or not, but I would really strongly encourage you to just get into the habit of doing this on your own, so that just in case anything ever changes about our code on the back end, the plugin that we might use for this, it still would work regardless. So you have to make sure that you attend to this. And if you haven't ever attended to this, make sure that you do, because you want to make sure that these things are getting sent out through there. Next down is the reply to. You could put in a reply to email address if you wanted to. So I might want to pull in the preferred email address so that if I were to reply to the form that gets delivered, I could reply it right back to the person who sent it. So that's something to consider as well. Sorry, drink break. Another thing to note here is it does ask for an email address up here. I believe you can add a second email address in here by adding a comma. I would say don't do that. Just create additional notifications. From my own personal standpoint, it's easier for me to mentally manage one notification per address that I'm sending it to. And also, you could put in a service account, a list. You could do anything like that. But honestly, I would just have it be one email address per notification. It's just easier for my brain to handle it that way. You might want to tinker around with using multiple addresses in here. Your mileage will vary. The BCC field, same idea as the reply to field and the from email field. Just you have to have an address in there if you wanted to carbon copy some or blind carbon someone. The subject, you can edit this as you see fit. The form title is pulling from this value right here. And then if you wanted to add more information up here, new submission from, I might put this in brackets and then put by first name and last name. So this way I would see the name of the person as well for the subject line in there. Form title is nice as well, just because I could subsequently create email filters and have anything email filter this into the into a particular folder. Same thing here. I could filter anything that's from this particular email address out to a particular folder. So something to think about there. And then what you receive is also editable. Notice that it is a text block, so you can customize this a little bit. You could make this be a little more styled if you wanted to. And again, maybe you don't want all the fields. You could go over here and tinker around with the various merge fields that you are requesting. There are also some other merge fields that are just defaulted into there if they have content to put into there. And then enabling conditional logic. Again, we'll get around to talking about conditional logic here in a few minutes there. So I've updated this. I'll just click on update notification. If I wanted to add a new notification, I would go back to notifications and click add new. Same steps that I just followed right there. I would just have to add in all that particular information. But for right now, we'll leave it as is for that. So back on over to the form. I have it. It's updated. I can give it a try now. And what I can do is I can go over to Pages and get rid of that guy. And let's just, I have so many pages that I don't remember where I test things out on anymore. Okay, so we'll just do Gravity Forms Training Test Form page. Come down into my text block area. It's a short code that gets entered, but because we have the Gravity Forms plugin, we do have this ability to add a form via just clicking on the button. And then I just need to choose the form that I want to go in. I could display the title if I wanted to. I could display the form description if I wanted to. And click Insert Form. And then once it's in, I can click Publish, Update, etc. All right, it's there. To bring it up over here. There it is. There we go. First name, Matt Goins. That's that. I'll click Let's Go. And there's where that text populated from my submission to the form. Let's oh boy. I'm already authenticated in, folks. So here is the email that comes through. And here is what it looks like when it lands on your page or lands in your email. All the fields. And then here's the, you notice how I put it in the brackets there, by, and then my name there. So that's what it looks like when it comes through. Nothing, too exciting about that particular thing. So let's go back and I'm going to open up forms in a new tab up here, just so I can bounce around with it. So let's add a little bit more to this particular form here. Let's see, Nick, I don't know if there's a way for you to see where it is deployed at. I might have to chat with Jenna and see if there's something that she knows. But I don't think that you can actually see where it's at if you don't remember what particular page it's on. I'm gonna have to think about it, because you might be able to search in pages for the shortcode itself, but we'll have to. I'll test that out in a second here. So back into my baseball season is here form. All right, so some other fields that we can put into here. So maybe this is going to be, maybe we're going to talk about maybe signing up to play baseball now. So let's add in a little bit more information that I might want to capture about a particular thing. So I'll go back into advanced fields. So maybe you want to sign up for baseball. So I need to have your phone number. So I'll put that up underneath email address. Go in here. I can say preferred phone number. We'll just go with that. Description. I can set the phone format to be our default or an international default there. I can make it required again, as obviously. I can put a placeholder in, and basically the placeholder I just put in there is just to give them a clue as to what they should put into there. And again, you could put some advanced information in there if you so desire. Okay, so my oldest son plays baseball, and so this is something that I go through on a regular basis. So you want to know, what positions do you prefer to play? So let's go ahead and add a checkbox, and we'll keep this pretty simple. And then I could, let's see. To add more, I can click on the plus signs here to add a few more. field. And then I could enable a select all choice as well. So what it does is it will add a select all value at the very top of the checkbox area. The appearance, again, I could choose some things in there. I can make it visible. I can make it hidden. We'll talk about conditional logic again in a few minutes here. But there's that one. Trying to think of what other things to do with this. We're going to add radio buttons in a second for conditional logic. You know, I could add a date field, and essentially the date function, what I might do is I might have the default value be the date. So I might tell it I want today's date to be the default value, and I might not want to make it visible to my audience. So this might be a way for me to say, this might be a way for me to track certain submissions a little bit easier within the form rather than relying on my, my email inbox to know when I got it. So maybe date submitted from that standpoint. So now I have a date field, I have your name, email address, your phone number, the text field that we still had, and then now some checkboxes with the select all option. So we'll click update, close that guy out, reopen this form. So now we've got you can see there. Preferred positions. Let's see. Catcher, first base, shortstop. We'll do it that way. So those are my choices. I'll click Let's Go. And wait patiently. There is the submission, and now you'll see what comes through. Date submitted. Notice that we didn't see that on the form. Name, and then the choices that were made there. So we're just advancing it a little bit. I'm keeping this somewhat simple, mainly because it's hard to know what all types of forms you're going to want to build out within your site, but you can kind of see what some of the flexibility is here for these particular forms. So let me go ahead and close this guy. And let's get back into here now. And now let's start talking a little bit about some of the more advanced stuff that you might want to start doing with your form. So let's start talking about conditional logic, and then that conditional logic will also play into our our confirmations and our notifications. So I asked for a preferred position value down here. Now, for those of you who don't know baseball, and maybe for those of you who do and don't realize it, if you play the catcher position, if you play the first base position, usually you have a specific glove that you have to wear when you are playing those positions. So maybe I want to know, for somebody who's signing up for to play baseball, I want to know, do they have their own glove or not? So I would want to put in radio buttons, and I will change this to be, do you have a glove? Do you have a first baseman's glove? And there's only two choices, yes and no. And appearance, leaving it as is. But we get over to advanced, and now we can start to chat about the conditional logic part of this. So now I'm going to say enable conditional logic and show if all of the following match. Now I want all because I want one particular field to have a very specific value. So I want preferred positions is first base, because I'm asking if you have a first base glove, or I'm asking if you choose to play first base, do you have a glove? But if you don't choose first base, it doesn't matter. This field shouldn't show to you at all. So another thing that you can do, so I've got this first baseman one. You know what? I need to ask the same question about being a catcher. So I'm going to duplicate this by clicking on the little two paper icon right here. And you'll notice one appeared right below it. So now I have a second one right there. Same logic is in there, same question. But I'm going to edit this one that I originally created. And I'm just going to change this to be, do you have a catcher's glove? Yes, no. I just need to change the advanced, the conditional logic, to be catcher. So now I will just test, just to look, make sure that this one stayed first base, first baseman's glove. Okay. And click update. And then you know what? one more radio button. And I'm going to say, do you need to purchase a glove? And again, yes, no, advanced, conditional logic, if preferred position is, oh wait, no, if, do you have a catcher's glove, thank you, is no, if any of the following match, and do you have a first baseman's glove, is no. So I have, what I'm doing is I'm going to create this, do you need to purchase a glove, yes or no. I'm going to base that on show this if any of these, so if either of these say no, I want to add this value into there. So one of the things that I'm going to do now based on this particular conditional logic that I'm creating is I can now set up a a confirmation function as well for, you know, if your answer is yes to this, then I'm going to send you somewhere to look at potentially, you know, purchasing a new glove. So have these set. I've updated. I'm going to go back over to here. I'm going to reopen this form right here. Let's start filling some things out. Preferred positions, catcher, first base, shortstop. It asked me for both of those. You know what? My son does have a first baseman's glove, but he does not have a catcher's glove. Do you need to purchase a glove? Yes. So now I will check the confirmation on this and say, let's go. Currently getting spammed by invitations. And so now you'll see again, as you're building this out, it is getting a little bit more populated. And again, now I can start to build some things off of some of these answers as well. So, to delete that, close out that. And so now this form is pretty good. It's where I need it to be. So now let's go to confirmations. And you know that redirect is in there. I'm going to get rid of that though. So I'm going to add a new confirmation. and I'm going to say no glove need to purchase. And so now I'll say thank you for submitting. It looks like you need to purchase a new glove. Typing and talking. New glove. I think you should take a look at. So now I'll put it. Oh nope, don't want that. There we go. There we go. And so now what I can do is I can put some conditional logic in for this particular confirmation, and I could say if any of the following, I guess I should say all in this case, if do you need to purchase a glove is yes, this confirmation will show. So again, we'll test this out in a little bit, but this is where you can start to use conditional logic based on stuff that's happening in the form, how you can inform people for things after they have submitted. So this is one way that you can take a look at this. So I will save this confirmation here. Again, we'll take a look at this in a second. Same idea with notifications. Notifications you can do conditional logic on. So I might add a new one here, and I might say let's go with this. Let's go recommend purchase of new glove. I won't be consistent with my naming there. So now what I can do is I can actually send a notification back to the person who filled out this particular form. And I can select a field and I can send it back to the preferred email address that they entered into there. From name, I could put in, from, let's see, the baseball team. The from email, remember, no reply at email.wiscweb.wis.edu. The reply to, we'll just put me in there for now. The subject, thank you for submitting, oh boy. And then go down. There's the form title. Here are some next steps. And then down here, it looks, please review your entries below that you filled out at edu. And then I could grab all submitted fields, and then I could say, it looks like you need to purchase a new glove. You should take a look at and then conditional logic, if do you need to purchase a glove is yes. So now I've made a very custom notification that's going to go back to the person who filled it out because they answered a specific question or a specific field a specific way. And I can give them some more information. I've done this a couple of times for groups where we also have put in here, thank you for your interest in yada, yada, yada. Please review your entries below and make sure that they are still accurate. If there are any changes that you need to make, you can do so by contacting blah. We don't have a way for people to edit their own form entries. That requires an add-on to Gravity Forms that we don't have, that we're not going to have. So you can just let them know that they can email you back with information if necessary. So I now have a confirmation. I now have a notification based on logic from the form itself. So let's test this out a little bit and see what I've broken. All right. So, catcher and outfield this time. Do you have a catcher's glove? No. Do you need to purchase a glove? Yes. So now two things should happen because I've answered this. I should get the confirmation screen that says perhaps I should go purchase it at Dick's Sporting Goods, and I should also receive an email because, you know, it's the preferred email address. I should also receive an email that says this additional information. So let's click Let's Go. There's my confirmation that happened. Did what I wanted it to do. Again, not very stylized. I could play around with this a little bit more in the text area to see. But now let's test the email. All right, so here's the one that I get for me as my as the owner of the form. This is the submission that I get. And then here is that specialized one that I created that went back to the person who filled it out. And now you've got this information as well. And let's go back to the form itself. Trying to think of any other little things. Sections, be careful with sections. You can break this up into sections of a site or of a form. Okay, where did my section go? There it is. So I might, tell me why you love baseball. So, let's see, information about you. Please tell us about yourself and your love of and then above I might want another section that is yep. There we go. So I can update it. You can kind of see here's personal information and then information about you. Notice, I mean, they don't stand out very well, so you might want to be careful with putting those in. The other thing that we realized, and for those of you who are on the WordPress, the community of practice list, one of the things that we realized that Kelly had emailed the list about was when you have fields within a section and they have conditional logic placed on them, when you start to take the field that has the conditional logic on it out of that particular section, it stops working. The fields that have the conditional logic applied to them stop working. So what I would have to do is if I needed to add more fields below this that were different than what I'm asking here, I would need to make sure that I put in another section to break up the conditional logic functions that are happening here. It's just a function of gravity forms that you just have to be careful with. Essentially, she was trying to recreate a form, but get rid of particular fields that she didn't need. Getting rid of some of those fields meant other things stopped appearing in the form itself because they were nested within the section where the conditional logic statements were. So, and it was interesting to learn, a pain to learn as well, but just be aware of that. You can also add pages into this. So basically you can say, you might have a very long form and you don't want that form to be just basically a wall of text. You might put pages in there so that they can click through to fill out the form. That option is there as well. You could add in some HTML if you wanted to. Notice that you have to have a little bit of HTML knowledge to play around with said HTML content area. But you could tinker around with that a little bit to see how that works. So there's that HTML content I put into there. So those are some of the fields that you can use for creating the form itself. I'll hold on a second here if you guys have any questions about the creation of forms, how do you place the forms. We'll get into a couple of other things in a second here because I want to show you another interesting way to use a form. But I'll hold for a second if you all have any questions in general that you might want to ask. Oh, and then I'll actually test out so if you'll notice, here's the short code. I'm going to go back to my pages while everyone is frantically typing in their questions. So I took the short code that I know what the short code is, but I'm going to see if this is one way to search for it. Nope. Let's see if that will do it. Nope. Nope, that's not a way that you can search for it. All right, I will have to talk with Jenna about that just to see if there is a way for you to find where you can see where a particular form has been placed. Nope, get back here. I saw you. Too many pages that are named similarly that I lose track of which ones I'm trying to do. Okay. Seeing the cavalcade of no questions in there, let's go ahead and talk about a couple of other things. So I talked about how you could create a notification that would go to the person who submits it, and then you could add some information in there about the fact that they, if they had any updates that they needed to make to email such and such. You actually have, so we've shown you the fact that you receive these particular submissions via your email. They are also stored within the form itself, within the database, with the entries field. So if you look at the entries field, this is how you can go in and actually take a look at all of the entries that have been placed within the form itself. And if I wanted to go into a particular one, I could click on that particular one and look at the information. And what I could do is, I received an email and I might need to edit it. So I can click on edit over here and I can change some of the information as it comes in. So, hey, get back here. I might want Andre Dawson instead of Ryan Sandberg on my team. So I updated it, and then I might want to add a note, user got in touch to change name from Ryan Sandberg to Andre Dawson. And it could email the note as well to the person who was in there if you wanted to confirm that. I don't need to worry about that. So I'll just add that note, and then there's that note down there that I added. So this is a way for you to track anything that you might want to give that a try, Nick. If you go to the form itself and look at the entries, if it has entries, this embed URL, that might be something to take a swing at. To take a look at whether or not it's embedded anywhere. So this is how you can take a look at the entries. You can get back into there and look at everything that is in there as well. So the last, I guess, more advanced thing that I want to touch on in regards to some of the another way that I think is interesting about gravity forms, but I don't know how useful it might be to everyone because it really is a very specific uses. You can create a form that would allow people to create posts within your site. So if you had a reason to, I guess, request information from your audience to create like news articles or articles of any nature, you could create a form that was a posting form essentially. Now, someone, an administrator or a person who has the ability to actually publish things would still have to go in and publish those posts. It doesn't just automatically do it because, quite frankly, you really don't want to do that because you open the door for the horrors of the internet. But this is an interesting thing that I kind of tinkered around with a little bit as I was getting ready for this class, and I thought it was really useful for those who would have that use. So I'm going to go back out to forms, and I created one down here, but I'll just create it brand new again. So click Add New, Gravity Forms, Posting Form. Do you have a news story that you would like to see on our site? Use this form to submit it. And then click Create Form. All right. So a few things here that you could start to use. So a couple of things here. First and foremost, I'm going to ask you your name. Let's go with date as well. I'd like to know when you are submitting this. So same ideas here. I want today's date or the date that you're submitting it. Okay. The name should be required. Your email address should be required. And a phone number should be required. So then we'll do standard field, a section break. And then we go to the post fields. And the post fields are where you can start to pull in some of those particular pieces of information. So obviously, post title, post body, the excerpt. If you want a person to actually supply the excerpt, and like for this, come on, play nice. Title. Oh. Doesn't let me add a description. I would have thought it would have allowed me to do that. All right. And then I could add a post image as well if I wanted to. So I could allow them to upload an image. Again, risky. And I'll show you. I'll also show you the other issue with this particular step. But we'll get to there when we can. So here it is. I need to update this to save it. Again, nothing too exciting here. We've already done some of these things. These are new, but the general idea is, you know, what, oops, you know, you're just adding them via the post fields section over here on the right. So now, settings, notifications. Again, I might want to create several notifications here. Who should this go to? From name. Apply to email. New news article request from form title by and then I might, you know, put into here just some general information about whoever's receiving this. So maybe one person would be responsible for going into I'm looking here because I'm curious. If you can embed, I'm wondering which of these would maybe be like a direct link into it. I'm gonna give that a shot. All right. Yeah. Holy cats. This thing does not like having the streaming software going. Okay, so that's what it goes to. All that information is in there. Reply to. Okay, update the notification. So I have that notification set. I don't need to worry about the confirmation. Again, I might want to customize it a little bit just to see what it might be. I'm going to head out to Pages. New post-submission test page. Down here, add form. Gravity Forms posting form. All that information there. Publish it. It is live. So now I will test it. All right, here it is. So let's go with so, you know, you can browse. Here's a picture. I'll put my boy up in there. So I'll say open. Scroll on down, click submit. Let's make sure everything's filled out. Okay, click submit. And wait. All right, there's that confirmation. Over to my email. Here's this. Aha! It does put it in. So now if I wanted to edit this particular one, I could click there. Now the drawback, or the thing to be aware of here is that I was already logged in. If you're not logged in, I don't think it will work that way. I'd have to test that out a little bit. But it took me right into the post that I need to edit. You'll notice the image didn't come in with it. So you would have to put the image in by clicking on Add Media and finding the image, and making sure that you apply alt text to it. The title, a caption if necessary, and then insert into the post. And being particular for some reason for a test on this. Okay, so that's one thing to note is the image gets submitted, but you have to actually go in and add that image into there. The other thing to be aware of is it will always default to the top category over here on the right. So you might want it to go into something else instead of the top category. So you just need to watch out for that. And then yeah, I could post it, publish it. Dramatic pause. Yep. And it's posted. That's really it. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. I like the way that this worked. I'm glad that this worked the way that it did, and you can kind of see you can customize this notification a little bit more if you so desire. But I liked the way that notification right there worked. with the URL to go right in to edit it. So you could just have someone go right to the spot where they need to edit it. You might change that. You might have to change that again. It's assuming that you're logged in. Obviously, I'm logged in, but you know, you might get an error kicked out to you if you're not logged in for that. But that's, check my note. Come here, notes. Check my notes quick just to see if there's anything else that I needed to touch on. Reviewing entries I talked about, placing the form on the page I talked about. So that's really it. I'm gonna bring this back up just so you have that to look at as well. But does anybody have any questions that they kind of would like to ask and maybe have answered? I'm noticing that it's blurry again. I'm gonna have to, oh, there, now it's not blurry. What do you mean by past parameters, Nick? I don't see a fuller description. I see I want the ball coming at me either all the time or almost never. Is that the one that you're chatting about? I'd like it to pre-populate the URL of the page where the user clicked a submit feedback from. Okay. Let's see. That. Yeah, I didn't see that one. I've seen a few of them, but I didn't see that particular one. You know what? I have never done anything with that particular value, but I'm wondering if it would be a merge field. Like, that's kind of the one that I'm wondering if it might be the one that you would grab as the referrer URL. But I'd have to test that. Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what I'm looking at right there. I think that's the one right there that we're both looking at for that value. So, it's worth a test. I'd be interested to see if that works, because again, that's from your own standpoints. I think that's good for analytics as well, or I guess your own internal analytics to know where people are getting to your submit forms from. Okay. So that's really about it for Gravity Forms. Again, I think for the most part, Gravity Forms itself is pretty easy to use. You can see where some of the more advanced things can get a little more, I guess I would call them fun to do. I think some of the things that you could do with Gravity Forms could be pretty interesting. I'm always interested in learning what people do because I get to then deliver it to folks like you who are trying to learn as well. So again, I'm going to add this to the Gravity Forms knowledge base document that we have, this link. But if you just look, it's docs.gravityforms.com/form-fields. it's a good resource. Also, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about gravity forms, come on into an open lab that we have coming up. Um, I mean, I'm more than happy to sit with you all and either tinker and or learn more. And then also, um, Nick, that's actually something that we have looked at in the past. We don't have, I think we don't have a good grasp on what everybody would like to have for that. But you can import and export. So if I go to import and export over here on the left, you can export entries from a particular form, and you can choose all the various things. You can also choose a date range. You can also add conditional logic from it. It will download it as a CSV file. There's also the export forms. So you could export your form into a JSON file that you could then upload and import into another Gravity Forms. Again, we've talked about this in the past of creating a library. I don't know how we would have to make these JSON files available probably through the knowledge base, or I'm sorry, through Box. But then we just don't know what types of forms people would want. And mainly, I just look at that as I haven't found one that everybody uses. Everybody has a different variation of the forms that they use. There's not one that's across the board. Even the customer feedback forms or the user feedback forms always are specific to a particular area. So it'd be difficult for me to build one out that everybody could use. Yeah, the newsletter subscribe one, we're trying to figure that one out because it requires script function that isn't allowed in our newer sites. So we're working on some embed options for that. That's actually um, a very good observation. Um, but yeah, uh, yeah, yeah. I'll chat with Jenna about that because I think that's a good observation. I think that's something that we could maybe work on and maybe make that like a future goal for introducing in a brown bag in a few months here. So, um, but that's that. I will stay on the line for just a few minutes more, but that's what I have for today. Thank you guys for listening in, and as always, if you have questions, do not hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to chat with you guys and come on into an open lab and we can chat a little bit more. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope it was useful.